Welcome back to Hodge-Podge Garage. Today, doing a little soldering work on the drone. Alright, so first things first, you might have seen this little guy in the tool haul the other day and had a bunch of good comments on the video. One of the suggestions was to take a little bit of this heat shrink tube and put it over the alligator clips so that way the little teeth on the clips don't chew into the wires and cause shorts like that. So thanks to Juan, I hope I say your name right, Hinayosa. He had mentioned first to throw that heat shrink tab over the alligator clips. There were a couple others that suggested the same thing as well. I think it was Space Rag. So we're going to do that first. And there was also another comment. Gosh, I can't remember who it was. I want to say, let's see here. I'm scrolling through my comments right now. It was maybe, yeah, Moslack, M-O-S-S-L-A-C-K, had mentioned that it's a little wobbly. Oh, as you can see there, falling over. So he's building a base for his. So I think I'm going to do that too. I'll build a little base to make this a little more stable. And then we are going to work on the cx20. So what happened here a while back, actually quite a while back before I did some work on this, I had a little crash. And as you can see inside, we've got our main board here, we've got our receiver, we've got all of our electronics inside, but specifically on each arm we've got the ESCs, otherwise known as an electronic speed controller, which regulates the speed of the motors so they can obviously stay afloat. And on the back of the ESCs, you can see here there's a little capacitor that is attached where the power comes in. And I heard a little rattling in the drone, but I still flew it and it was flying fine. But upon further inspection, when I got this apart, we have these capacitors on the back of each of the electronic speed controllers, but one had broken off of this guy. So today, and I did find it in there, I've got it right here, I'm going to go ahead and solder that back on the board. So I've disconnected the motor, I've disconnected that board, and we're going to get that soldered back on there. To my understanding, those little capacitors just help in voltage spikes, because as these motors are drawing more and more power, the voltage spikes can go up and down and really heat these boards up. So I'm going to put that back on there and hopefully keep this thing from catching fire. So let's see how this all works. We're going to get these alligator clips rigged up here. Oop, bumping the camera all around. So let's see if I can do this without melting it too bad. So first, I just cut these into some shorter lengths. I'll trim them down once we actually get it locked in. But I got a little butane torch here. We'll just heat shrink that guy on, and that did the job really nice and quickly. I'm going to hold it open for a minute here too, so that can cool off and hopefully not chew into the wires too bad. We'll get one on the bottom, do that one as well, and that's a nice quick job. These little butane torches work nicely. You don't want to get too much in there, too hot, and melt it, but now, yeah, looking pretty good. So when we put wires in there, let's see if I've got a spare around here somewhere. Well, here we go. We'll just use this cable and put wires in there. That heat shrink's just going to help keep it so the raw teeth don't cut into it too much. And we'll do the other one as well, just like it. It's got a few screws in here to attach the speed controller board back to, oh, that's where a magnet comes in handy, hopefully. Get that screw that I dropped. We'll get that speed controller back in here. Hopefully that will do the trick. That's nice and down. Cool. Probably helps if I unplug my soldering iron so I don't burn my arm over here. Alright, so that's in. Now we just need to reattach the motor. And we'll do that from the bottom. And make sure that the short screws, because if you put the long ones in, then the ends of them are going to hit the motor and not let it spin freely. So, search through here for the short ones. There we go. So, give those a little tighten down. And make sure that the motor spins freely, which it does. Good to go there. Alright, so now I need to figure out a way to get this guy stuck down here better. It does already have some double sticky tape on it, so I think, yep, as long as I took that little zip tie that was in there out, now the tape sticks nice. Cool. So now we can put the lid back on her. Oh, you know what? I do need to do a little bit of super gluing first, because I had two little pieces that broke off. So we'll do that off camera. Alright, the next issue is we have the bottom plate right here of the new gimbal. And as you can see, if we put that down here, it just covers all of the connections to our power and our servos. So basically, for our control on the pitch and yaw of the gimbal from the radio are these pins up here, and then we've got our 12 volt outs here. And if I put that there, then it's going to be really hard to plug the connections in. So I'm taking the old original gimbal mount, and basically what I did is I just put some standoffs on there. So those will help. Let's see if I can get that at an angle that you can see. Those will help lift that off. So if I put this now on here and mount that to this, and then, oh, if I can hang on to stuff, and then we'll mount this on top of that, and as you can see there, now it's going to leave enough room that we can get to those connectors underneath. So let's get this screwed in. Okay, so now we've got this plate screwed in here, and as you can see, I've got the original plate on the bottom, got my standoffs there so it lifts it off the top, and now when I go to plug in my accessories, I'll be able to access that port there and be able to plug those in without them getting in the way. So basically at this point all we need to do is get the gimbal, work those little guys through there, and get these little vibration dampeners, work through those holes, and then wire it up. And we're gonna have a little soldering to do because I've got to change the connector on this. This is our 12 volts to power the gimbal, and then we will also have additional connectors from back here to the servos, to S1 and S2 channels, so I can control the pitch and yaw of this while in flight. Alright, here's the next step. So I've got the gimbal here, and these are our 12 volt leads, and this is the connector that I need to attach. So first things first, you know, I've talked to a handful of people about soldering, and since that last video, I've got some really old solder. This is just silver bearing solder. It's as you can see there, 62% tin, 36% lead, 2% silver, and nice and thin, which helps for these small wires. Now they do have solder with a flux in them, but even when I use solder with flux, I will add flux to it. So what I have here is tinning flux, and that's number 95, just some flux. This helps let the solder flow wherever the flux is. And if you're doing bigger stuff, you can use like a little brush and brush it on, but usually for these, what I do is I just take the end of the wire and just kind of stick it in the flux itself, right in the corner. That tends to do the trick. I do this on both sides, and it helps to have just a little, you know, poker or whatever, especially when working on small wires, and just take a little dab of that flux. You don't want to put too much on, but just kind of coat the end of the wire there and get it in between the strands. So like make sure that you kind of work it into the wire if you're working on stranded wire, and that will help the flux flow all the way inside. And then after that, the next thing that you want to do is get your shrink wrap. Don't forget to do this. Put your shrink wrap on before you get ready to solder, because once it's on there, especially if you've got some kind of connector at the end, it's not going to go on again. So let's see how this guy works. We're going to see if I can line these guys up and get a nice little solder going here. Alright, so we're just going to put those end to end like that. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that a little bit, and if I can find out where I'm pointing. There you go. You can see got those wires end to end, just touching. Got the flux on there, and now we're ready. So the soldering iron is heating up at the moment. I've got it right over here. Get some stuff out of the way so you can actually see what's going on. Got my soldering iron here heating up. I've got a little stand for it so it doesn't burn whatever I'm setting it on. But now that I've got these flux and touching, also another thing that you can do is tin the wires that you are going to connect. And what tinning is you actually put a little bit of solder on both the ends of the wires before you do it, so that way when you melt it, that solder is already there to go in. But one of these was already tinned, so I'm not worrying about it. And basically at this point, as my soldering iron heats up, I'm just going to brush it off a little bit. I've got a wire brush here, just to get that kind of clean. It's also a good idea to have a wet sponge. I don't personally use it, but then once you're ready, you can start touching the solder to the end of your iron, and you'll see it start to bead. Well, a nice shiny silver bead there, and then it's just a matter of getting a little bead on the end of your iron, and then you just touch the two wires with that, and that flux is going to melt, and they are then joined together. While doing this, you also want to make sure that your shrink wrap is as far away from where you're soldering as possible, because it does heat up the wires when you're soldering it, and you don't want that shrink wrap right up here to actually shrink before you have a chance to get it together. So now that we just touch those two together, they're nice and joined there, you can see. And then what we'll do is just slide out. Let's see if I can do this. We'll just slide that shrink wrap over where we just soldered, and then we'll just hit that with the butane lighter or a heat gun, and that'll shrink it down. So we'll just do the next one here. Gonna get my lines nice and straight, and then we'll clamp it up. So let's see how this one goes. We will start off by putting this guy in the little clamp. Straighten this one out, and we'll get him in the clamp too. And then we can work this together. The best thing to do here is get them to where there's not much tension on either side. You don't want to put them on there and just have it like leaning on each other, because once you heat it up, then it's going to rotate a little bit. And this thing is actually pretty cool to get these little joints, because you can work it around. So hopefully you can see that. And I'm going to go ahead and just get another little dab of that flux. Just kind of work it around both of those. And then once we got those together, we'll zoom in this time. Zoom in a little bit further, see if we can get this to focus. So those two are there. Got our flux already. We're just going to take our iron, get a little ball of solder on the end of it. Oh, it helps if it's in camera. And then just touch it. It's just a light little touch, a little rub back and forth, and you can smooth things out. Solder does want to flow to where the heat is, so if you have an area that doesn't have a lot of solder on it or doesn't look like it's joining very well, then you can put the iron on the other side and the solder will flow to it. I add a little bit more just to make sure that is nice and good. And basically you just touch it. And those are now joined as well. You know what I did? I didn't put my heat shrink on. See? Told you what to do, and then I didn't do what I said. So we'll go ahead and correct that. One more tip when it comes to doing that soldering joint, and if you did not get it right like I did, if you just heat it back up, you can pull them apart. Then we'll go ahead and slide our heat shrink on there. Get that on. Touch these back together. Just heat it back up. And I've got plenty of solder already on there. So we are joined. And that will do the trick. It doesn't want to focus. Focus, you fuck, as AVE would say. There we go. And we'll just slide our heat shrink right over. We'll heat that down. Be good to go. We'll zoom out a bit here. Make sure that the heat shrink is in the center of whatever joint you got there. And then, doesn't take much. You don't want to do super direct. Just a little bit on the bottom. Try not to shoot the flame towards your board or electronics. And just like that, we are good to go. I usually give it just a little bit of a pinch around the outside that helps seal the very ends. This isn't going to be in water or anything, so it doesn't need to be waterproof. We just want to protect those two from touching and obviously shorting that out. So now we've got our main connection. And there we go. Finished product. Got her all put back together, and as you can see, I've got it powered up. So now that the gimbal's on there, the quad can move around, but the camera stays level. So as this thing's bumping around, that will help keep the camera view a lot more stable. I went ahead and wired in the FPV camera as well. And if we take a look here on the controller, we've got my screen and we have picture. So there it is, there's the picture. So it's kind of neat that we've got the picture. You can see there's not a whole lot of lag, so it's pretty nice. Pretty clear. It's a lot more clear video looking at it straight on, but I'm excited to give it a try. We'll see what happens here, and yeah, that's all there is to it. So thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. Don't forget, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Stay tuned because I will be ordering soon a kit here to do, or not a kit, but I'm ordering all the parts to make an FPV racer style drone that I'm hopefully going to get into doing some freestyle stuff and get some really cool footage. So this is obviously my camera drone, and I'll be using this to hopefully get some awesome shots as fishing season comes up, and then I'll get the racer style. I'm looking at an Armiton Chameleon or possibly the Rooster, and we're gonna deck that thing out pretty nice too. So again, thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget, make cool shit. Later.